Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Rob Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commodore James Librand. This evening we're honoured to acknowledge Sir Roger Carr, Global Chairman of BAE Systems International, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of the following schools from New South Wales: St Joseph's Primary School, Denman, and St Joseph's Primary School, Merriwa. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Edward Broughton Martin. Edward Martin was born on the 23rd of August 1886 in Yakka, South Australia. Affectionately known as Ted, he was one of 7 children born to labourer Alexander Martin and his wife Maud Martha. Ted's father abandoned the family when Ted was a child. His mother moved to the town of Port Pirie, where she raised a large family. Ted attended Port Pirie Primary School before going out to work as a labourer. He was employed in this capacity when the First World War broke out in 1914. Ted Martin joined the initial rush of young men who enthusiastically volunteered in droves. He enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 5th of September 1914 and was assigned to E Company of the 12th Battalion before commencing a short period of training. 2 months later, he embarked from Hobart with his unit, sailing on the troop ship Geelong. Private Martin arrived in Egypt in early 1914 and continued training with his unit. He was among those Australians who landed on the beaches of Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915, as the Allies attempted to force the Dardanelles. Martin's 12th Battalion was the first unit ashore, coming under heavy fire from the enemy on high ground. After the Australians were able to consolidate their position at Anzac, Martin and his comrades were involved in defending their precarious position, repulsing regular attacks from the Turkish forces. In July, Martin was serving on the front lines with his unit when he was hit by shrapnel, sustaining wounds to his face. He declined to be evacuated for medical treatment and instead remained on Gallipoli with his unit until the campaign was abandoned in December. Later, Martin and the rest of the AIF returned to Egypt to regroup and reorganise before deploying to France. Martin embarked for the Western Front in March 1916, arriving in the city of Marseille after a week-long voyage. From there, his unit was immediately sent north to the Franco-Belgian border, entering the trenches in a quiet space known as the nursery sector. Here, Martin and his comrades were given their introduction to war on the Western Front before being sent south to the Somme Valley in July to support Allied attacks around the village of Pozières. Martin's unit fought there until September, when it was withdrawn from the front lines for a period of rest. It then travelled to a comparatively quiet sector of the front in Belgium, where it undertook training and trench maintenance tasks. His unit returned to France later that year, arriving as a bitterly cold winter set in. Early in 1917 was marked by the German Army's strategic withdrawal to the fortified Hindenburg Line. Its retreat was eagerly followed by Allied units who seized the opportunity to push the enemy back. In advancing, these units were confronted by well-prepared rearguard defences and booby-trapped towns, resulting in a series of bloody clashes. Martin's unit was drawn into this pursuit before taking part in the fighting around the village of Fremicourt on the 6th of April. The 12th Battalion was relieving the 29th Battalion in the front lines when enemy began heavily shelling their position. Martin was hit by shrapnel and wounded in multiple places. He was taken by field ambulance to a nearby dressing station before being evacuated to the city of Rouen. It was discovered the shrapnel had severed his spine, leaving him paralysed from the shoulders down. He suffered in hospital for several days, during which time his condition declined until he succumbed to his wounds and died on the 21st of April 1917. He was buried shortly after in the nearby St Sever Cemetery, where he lies today beneath the epitaph chosen by his family. The love for you we had in life, in death seems stronger still. Private Martin was 30 years old. His name is listed on the roll of honour to my right amongst 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We'll now remember Private Edward Broughton Martin, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.